Hi, welcome to Crafting with Kimberly. I'm Kimberly Canali, and today we are going to be making explosion boxes. They're not really going to explode, but when you take the lid off, they will gently fall open, and you'll have a place to have multiple layers and pictures and little pockets to be able to put pictures or tags or little goodies. It's a fun way to make either a present for someone or use it as an art journal, but 3D. Now, for the library, we had kits made with these boxes, and I purchased these boxes at the Dollar Tree. I got them at Christmas time, and they came in 3 different sizes. This was the largest, this was the next largest, and there was even a smaller one. So if you have these boxes, you don't have to use paper. You could just use your paper to decorate the box. This would be your actual structure. But again, as I said, these were only available at Christmas time. So if you don't have the ability to have a box, I am also going to show how to make it out of a 12 by 12 sheet of scrapbook paper. So this way everyone can make one now. You don't have to wait for the box. So during the video, I'm going to be going back and forth between saying how to make it with a box and how to make it with the paper. So for your supplies, you will need a box or 2 if you can find them, or 12 by 12 sheets of scrapbook paper. I am using basically 4 or 5 pieces of the 12 by 12s. This will allow you to be able to make pockets and a lid. You're going to need scissors. I'm using a glue stick. These really help. You can use hot glue if you want, but I prefer, when we're working with paper, I prefer a glue stick. It's much faster. Tacky glue also works, but you have to wait for it to dry. So I really like a glue stick anytime you're using paper. A ruler, pencil to be able to make your markings, and then to decorate any kinds of additional scrapbook papers or jewels or pictures or book pages. So any kind of little decoration type things you want. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn the camera around and let's get started. So this is what the box looks like close up. You have your lid. You can take your lid off and the box will gently fall open, or as we're saying, explode. And inside you have multiple layers. For this particular one, I chose to just cover the inside of the box with scrapbook paper, add 1 layer, and then add another layer. And then those, technically 2-3 layers, create the box. So there's multiple ways that you can do this. If you like what your inside of your box looks like and not wanting to change the color of it, this is what the red one looked like. You could leave it as is. Or as I said, take the paper and create an inside box. The way I got the measurements is because I had a big box and a small box. I opened both of them, and instead of using the small box, I just used it as a template. The weird thing with these boxes is it is not square. It was higher rather than wider. It wasn't a perfect square. So the measurements are a little weird. So if you do get 2 of these boxes, as I said, I used the smaller box as my template, and then I just made an even smaller layer. You could use this as a template and then draw your lines inside smaller so it has layers down. So that's why I said this one was a little weird because the measurements were really crazy. I started to try to do the measurements out for you, and it's about 4 7/8 by 4 3/8, and then the next layers were a weird layer, so I went just 12 by 12, and then 10.5 by 10.5. So I am going to show how to do that on a scrapbook paper. You can see this is one. I have not glued it yet together, but these are all the different layers. You use one 12 by 12 sheet of paper that makes your outer box. Your next layer is 10.5 by 10.5, and then your second layer is 9 by 9. And then you make a lid 6 1/4 by 6 1/4. So these measurements were much easier, but the way to make the layers are still the same. So whether you have the box or just use a sheet of paper, they will both work. So we're going to start with our outer box. You're going to decide of your scrapbook pieces of paper what coordinates well. The nice thing with buying scrapbook pads is that they come in tons of different colors, even different weights of paper, but they all somewhat, when you buy a pad, they all coordinate with each other. So that's a great way to be able to get lots of scrapbook papers instead of having to just buy sheet by sheet. But either way, you'll be using 12 by 12. This is a 12 by 12 sheet of paper, but I loved the way that looked, and I wanted to make that my lid. So I just folded it to be able to keep my center, and then the measurements are 6 1/4 by 6 1/4. So we'll get to the lid later, but this is how I want to do my box. I want this to be my lid. I want this to be the outside of the box, and then I will be using these to be the inside of the box. So let's start with the outside of the box. This is the paper that I've chosen. I'm going to turn it over so the back side is showing, so I could make my measurements without them being seen. So because this is 12 by 12, it's a perfect square. I need to turn this paper into thirds. So I am going to measure at the 4-inch and the 8-inch marking, because that will give me perfect thirds. So I'm going to measure here at 4 inches and at 8 inches. I'm going to bring that up here, line it up, 4 inches and 8 inches. I'm going to draw my lines to coordinate them. Line up my ruler. A good trick too is when you are lining up a ruler, your paper is square, so line up one edge to the other, and then you'll make sure you have a nice straight line. So I'm just going to follow those lines, getting it completely lined up. Making sure it's straight. And now I'm going to turn it this way because I need to make this basically into a grid. So I'm going to go again 4 inches and 8 inches. Bring that up. 4 inches, 8 inches, and connect those lines. So I'm kind of making a tic-tac-toe grid. So now you can see I have equal quadrants, equal squares. They are all, when I fold this, it will be in thirds, both ways. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to follow my lines, and I am going to fold this into thirds. So by having the lines there, it makes it really easy. Line up your edge, line it up to the other line. So I'm going to fold that line, open that up, do the same thing. Fold into that line, making sure it's straight and even. Fold into that line. Do the same thing on the sides. Different papers have different thicknesses. This scrapbook paper has a tendency to be very thin. If you get the double-sided scrapbook paper, that tends to be a little thicker, but mostly the books have this thinner paper. But we're going to solve that problem because it is a little loose. We're going to make that even thicker and turn this single-sided paper into double-sided paper. So what we're going to do is we are going to cut little sections. We're going to cut on the lines. So I'm going to take this one, and if you even want to make an X so you know where you want to cut, I want to cut that, turn it. I want to cut there, turn it. I want to cut there, turn it, and I want to cut there. I highly suggest doing the X's just so it's easier to remember when you're starting to cut where you have to cut. So I want to cut this line right, just that one line, that one side of the smaller box. So right to that dot. So we're going to cut that. So now I have a piece that will be able to fold over that way. Coming around to this side, I want to cut here. Cutting on that line. So now I have two sides that can fold. Coming over here, cutting this line. That folds over, and now cutting that line. So by cutting that, I can now fold these pieces over, and you can see I will have a double-sided box. I will have this pattern in the middle, and I'll have that pattern on the side. Now here's where some decisions need to be made. If I open this all back up, I can make pockets if I want to. I could fold this over and then fold that piece down and fold it. By folding it, that creates a pocket. Now I've lost having the double-sidedness, but I've created a pocket on the inside. If you want to do that, then it's handy to have another piece of scrapbook paper, and then you would glue those two together. And then you'd have to cut it so it would attach, and then you would have the double-sided. If you don't want to do that for this layer, which I am not going to, I would then keep it this way, take my glue stick, make sure I get all the edges. I'm going to fold that over. So now I have the side of my box. Here's another decision. If you wanted to make this be a pocket, take your glue stick, go along the edge and the edge, make it thin. And then if I fold that over, I now have a pocket that I can add something in. So I think I'm going to do that. I will keep that as a pocket, and I will do this one as a pocket. Again, just a thin layer up to the top, right up to the edge. Fold that over. So now I have a pocket here and a pocket here. That one's solid, and I'll make this one solid. Takes a little bit for the glue to dry. So this is the bottom of my box. If you wanted to, you could cut out a piece of paper to fill that, but it's my bottom. I'm not worried too much about that one. And now I have the sides of my box. I'm not going to cut into this layer because when you have pockets like that, sometimes if you do a little indent, as I did on this one, I cut a slit, and then that way I can put a tag or a photo in there, and it's a little easier to get out. You can do that. So if you wanted that, you could just take it and do a little slit. It can be a square, it can be a triangle, it can be a circle. I'm not going to though. I'm just going to leave those plain. So this is the outside of my box. I am done with this layer for now. So I'm going to set this aside. I'm going to go to my next layer, which is going to be this piece of paper. So it's a 12 by 12 piece of paper. But now I'm going to make this 10.5 by 10.5 because we want it to gradually be smaller. So I'm going to go to 10.5. And 10.5. And I have a little mini paper cutter. So I'm going to use that to make a nice straight line. Line that up. Make sure that's even. All right, so now I have 10.5. Because I'm using a paper cutter, I can just do a little mark down there because that's straight. I can line that up. Make sure it's straight in my ends. Otherwise, just cut it out. Save these pieces of paper because you can always use them for tags or embellishments. So now I have 10.5 by 10.5, and that's my paper. So now for that, I need to make this into thirds. So 10.5 and 10.5 is 3.5 and 7. So I'm going to make a line at 3.5 and 7. Do the same thing. We're doing the exact same thing as we did before. So 3.5 and 7. Line those up. Line these up. And now I need to go this way as well, just like we did before. So 3.5 and 7. 3.5 and 7. Line those up. So we're going to do the same thing. I'm going to mark my edges. So I can cut my paper. You can see for this one, which fits just like that, I used this paper and I folded the corner over to make a pocket on each side. But then I needed to put scrapbook paper on the other side. So first I'm going to cut this out. So now I have the parts that I can fold over. Just want to give my fold lines. So you can either fold it before you cut it to make it a little easier, or fold it afterwards. Your choice. I wanted to show both ways, but you're still just going down to the line. All right, so now I have this piece. For this one, I'm going to fold it like that to give myself a pocket. But then that leaves me a completely blank background. So I'm going to need to cover this side. I'll only need basically the plus sign shape because those pages are going to fold over like that. So I need to cover this side. Or if you really want it to be high contrasting, this is the page that I'm going to add to it. If you want those two to go together, then what I would do is you're basically going to measure 10.5. Again, I'm going to use my paper cutter here. That's my 10.5 mark. I'm making sure that's completely lined up. Now I have to measure 10.5 this way. So now I have that piece that matches that piece. 10.5 by 10.5. So I am going to glue my pieces of paper together. Make sure you get right to the edge. Sometimes I put another piece of paper underneath to make sure that I am getting right to the edge and not worry about ruining my table. School glue dries very quickly, so you can see you kind of have to hurry. Make sure that it's all glued down. I'm going to line my edges up. And for some reason, it's not lining up exactly, so I don't know if I didn't, yeah, I guess I didn't do 10.5 exactly on that first page. So when your measurements don't line up, but at this moment, let's see what we can do. I like to make the mistakes and show you the mistakes, so in case you do it too. So let's cut these slices again. I need to go there, there, all right, so now I have a double-sided piece of paper. This is going to be my next layer, and I want that showing, so I want that to be my main layer. So what I'm going to want to do, I want to fold that in and then fold it down. I can either have that be the same, but what I would like is I would like a contrast. So you could either do it the same, but at least it's double-sided now. I want some contrast. So instead of folding this way, let's open that back up. Let's fold down Now that gives me a nice contrast. So the same thing here. We're going to fold that over. I'm going to fold that all the way down so it's matching. And then I'll be able to glue that. There is a little edge there, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to slice that. Or you could take washi paper and put a piece of washi paper over it if you really wanted it to be the exact same size. What do they always say? Measure twice, cut once. And again, folding that over. Folding that down. And folding up. So now you're going to see I have some really cute pockets that will be glued down, and you have pockets to be able to put pictures in. So when that's standing straight up, that will be a pocket. I also have, remember I said never throw any of these papers away. So I can actually fix this by cutting a little sliver off. I'm going to use the back of that to just glue all the way on. As I said, there are never mistakes in crafting, just creative opportunities. So now I've got that fixed, and I need to do that one as well. This one, of course, is going the other way. So I'm going to take my other piece of paper that I had from the other edge. That's what you have to be careful with when you have patterns, making sure that they go the same way. Or, since we're using contrasting things, just embracing it and letting it go which way it goes. So I'm going to put that right up against there. So now you can't even see the mistake. So in case that happens to you, in case you don't measure completely the same, that's a way to fix it, or slice it down some. But now I want to turn this into a pocket. So I have to glue this. Fold my triangles down, get those glued. All the way around. So now you can see the diamonds. I want to turn that into a pocket. So it's folded over. I want to be able to put things in there, so I need to do just a very thin layer of glue right around the edge and glue that down. So just the barest, thinnest, because the more glue you put on there, the higher up you go, the less space you'll have to be able to put something in there. So you want to really do just a very small layer of glue. So now you can see that this is your second layer and ready to go. You want to probably put this set aside, put something heavy on it just to make sure that that really does stick well, because these want to come, these do have a tendency to want to come up because it's such thick paper. So just kind of set that aside, put that under something heavy. Now we're ready to do our next layer. This layer is going to be 9 inches by 9 inches. So we're going to make sure that we measure that out again. 9. Again, save your scraps because those can be pockets. So here's, again, 9 by 9. And then with this one, to be able to get it to go into thirds, we're going to measure at the 3 and the 6. So 3 and 6. Okay, and again, draw your lines 3 and 6. And we'll do the same thing where we'll get the pre-folding. I find it easier if you pre-fold it. And again, you have the same decisions to make if you want this to be double-sided, have another piece of paper attached to it as well. I'm not going to use this piece because I've already got that piece there. I think I'm just going to go with the dots. So again, I'm going to cut here here, here, and there. One cut. Just for that center square. This is always the easiest way to make your paper double-sided. You still need this plus sign shape to be able to fit into the box shape, but it doesn't have to be the seam pattern if you don't want it to be. So with this one, you decide what it is you want as your pockets. If you want pockets, or if you just want to tape pictures to this part, add little notes. I think for this one, I'm going to cut out a little groove, so this will have a place to be able to put a tag going in this way. But first, I am going to glue them. So again, because I want a pocket here up at the top, I'm going to just glue a thin line there and there. Just a very thin line, because the more glue you put in, the thinner amount you'll have to be able to make as a pocket. So you really want a very thin line. Going down. I don't need to worry about this part because that's what I'm going to be gluing down. So now here is where you can be very creative as well. I want this to have the opening, but I want to also show that it's an opening. So I think what I'm going to do is this could be a square. It could be a circle. It could be a wavy line. It could be a triangle. It's whatever you feel you want. I had triangles before, so I think I want to do a square. So I'm just going to take my ruler, kind of guesstimate the middle here, and kind of just decide how far down I want it to go. And again, that's up to you. I'm going to just mark my line so I have them all the same. So again, I'm just going to estimate where I want that to be. Now, this is where you have the ability to put your own unique spin on things of how you want to decorate this. What do you want it to be for? Do you want it to be as a gift and add gift cards, little flat paper presents? Gift cards are great. Or do you want it to have pictures or inspirational messages? And again, I'm just going to cut along that line. This is where it's fun, especially if you did wiggly lines, different geometric shapes. I thought the square would look cute with the circles. And it'll go by whatever your paper is. So then there we have some nice cutouts. I'm going to erase my lines because I didn't exactly cut on them. Make sure it's folded. So now I can put a tag in here to be able to pull out. You could use thin pieces of paper, you know, make different things, hidden messages to put in there. I kind of like the idea of that because it also gives the polka dots. I can turn that into a tag shape. I can go up a little bit, fold that to make it a little higher. I want to turn that into a diamond shape. I want to flip this to the other side, and then I can use that as a template so they'll be even right across and I don't even need to measure. Glue that together. So now I could write on this. I can add pictures onto this. But you can see by adding it in here, the papers match and it looks cute. So that can be my tag. And I could write all sorts of things on that, put those all around. So that's kind of a neat way to do that. So now that I have all of these in and done, if you wanted to add something to the back, because this is just a solid one, this doesn't have anything, again, you could add pictures, you could add pockets. I could take just a simple piece of paper to the size that I wanted, say about that big. I could cut that, glue that down 3 sides, and have a pocket to be able to put things in that way. These were little folders that I made just out of a rectangular piece of paper. I started by folding over how much of a tab I wanted, how much I wanted to glue down. So I folded that and then took what was rest of it and folded it up. So now that can be the same thing. I can glue that down, glue just on the sides here and leave that open to be able to put things in. If you do a couple of those, depending on the size, this won't match or fit this size, but you could make them to the size that you needed, glue it there, and then also glue it underneath, and then you'd have pockets to lift up. That's a fun thing to do. This is a fun piece as well. This is nice to be able to make for the center. It's a kind of a circular folding part, and remember, when you're putting these pieces on, this was the 12 by 12. This is the 10.5 by 10.5. This one is the 9 by 9. So what you would have to do, this would obviously be too big for that because the square is so much smaller. I could make pockets like that and put them on there. So to make this pocket, this is basically your plus sign, but rounded off. So for it to fit into this middle one, I would have to have it be at least this size. And this again was the 9 by 9. But I think I'm going to make it a little smaller. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to make this, because I just want some of that edge to show. I think I'm going to go 8 1/4. So I'm going to still make my plus sign. So I have to measure it equally. But I do want it to be smaller because I would like some of that bottom to show. So I'm going to cut this paper out. So I went 8 1/4 by 8 1/4. Also, if you did not want to measure, you could have traced this onto that sheet of paper and then just drawn in a little bit. So then you don't have to do exact measurements. I want this to basically be in thirds. So again, if you don't want to measure, fold it that way to get a basic size. This doesn't always work out perfectly, but it's close. Because I'm cutting edges off, I don't really care if this is exactly even. And I also wanted to just show you another way to get that to go into thirds without measuring. All right, so now I'm going to do the same thing. Cut line, cut line, cut line, and cut line. So we're doing just the same exact way we did for everything. Okay, so now I'm going to glue that together. Because I'm basically making two-sided paper, but I don't want any openings, so I'm gluing it completely together. All right, so now I have my plus sign. And again, you can keep going with layers. So you could see if I wanted a whole nother layer on this, that would have worked as well. And I can do whatever I want for that. But I want to make just have those layers and have this be this. So what I'm going to do with this is I am just going to round this area off. So I kind of want to go, I want to know where my half mark is. So I'm just going to fold these down and in so I know where the top of my arc is. It can be a square too, but I like the rounded. So you can see that once that gets folded, those will interlap on each other. So now that I have that fold line, I'm just going to arch this. So I'm going to cut that into an arch shape. So that is my arch. And then now I can use this as a template. So then they'll all pretty much be the same size. Just trace that. All right, so now I can cut all those pieces out. And again, even these could still be saved because you could add extra pockets because that would fit nicely into there. If you like the shape of that, you could glue that along the 3 corners and be able to have that as a pocket because we've glued that together so that's solid, but this could work as a pocket, or you could cut it off and make it straight. So lots, the more pockets you have, the more little hidey places you have for things. So now you can see it's kind of a rounded plus sign, and this just folds very nicely like that, and that will fit into my square. So I'm going to take glue. Kind of in the middle there. Glue that down. So again, to fold it down, 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 and then that tucks under. And then you can have a nice little surprise under there. I'm going to take this area now and glue it to this. Now here's one thing. If you have patterns that you have to worry about, you know, look before you glue it. This all is going the same way, so I don't have to worry about it. But if you did, pick what side is going to be to the front. And if you fold it all up like that, then you'll know exactly where that's going to have to go. And then now I can glue this center square. Just gluing it in the center. So now I have my box shape. For the lid, I took a piece of paper that was 6 1/4 by 6 1/4. This had this mandala motif here, and I really wanted to use that. So what I did is I just measured 6 1/4 by 6 1/4 and then folded these papers down, and I'm going to glue that. Otherwise, if you're just taking a basic piece of scrapbook paper, you're going to just make a square of 6 1/4 by 6 1/4. But because I want this to be a little more sturdy, that is why I'm going to be gluing this down. And I just cut out a little square for the sides just to make it fold in nicely and not have too much bulk. So again, really my important part of this is just having, I'm doing an extra step only because I liked this pattern. So I'm literally, instead of cutting out a 6 1/4 and a 6 1/4, I've cut it bigger and then I'm gluing. So again, this is just an extra step that I created for myself because I wanted this circle pattern, but this also helps me get it really strong because it's a lid. So I would highly suggest, even if you cut just a 6 1/4 by a 6 1/4 piece of paper, do 2 and then make it double-sided. And I don't care that there's a little gap in the middle. That doesn't bother me. So that's going to be my lid. So once you have your 6 1/4 by 6 1/4, you're going to do an inch all the way around, an inch fold line. So I'm going to draw my line and then just make sure that that is even. So there's an inch fold line all the way around. Do it again. Another tip too is if you want to take your ruler and put it where your inch is, do it that way. You can help, that helps you fold it up. Again, make sure your edges are even. as you're folding. But we want to do 1 inch all the way around. And 1 more. By doing it with the double thickness like this, it really will give you a much sturdier lid. All right, so now I have folded 1 inch line all the way around. And you can see on this lid, I did put 2 pieces of paper together, and I folded 1 inch all the way around. So now what we want to do is we want to cut a tiny, you can see on this one, I cut a tiny little sliver because this is going to help us fold that in to be able to glue it, and it's going to give you a very nice fold. So I just went through, just like we did on all the other tops, I'm going to take the top of that line, and I'm just going to, actually this is really hard to see, and if I can't see it, I'm sure you can't see it. So I'm just going to make a line where my fold mark is. That way you can see where it is. So now I can see that line. I'm going to cut on that line right to my fold line, and then I am going to cut the barest little sliver, just a tiny sliver, and pull that off. I'm going to do the same thing. I've cut it to my line. I'm going to cut a tiny sliver. So do that all the way around. You don't really have to do this step, but I like it because it really will give you a nice finished edge. So with that now, you're going to be able to fold those lines up and be able to have a nice crease. So I'm going to put glue all along on that, bring that in, and just kind of hold that together for a little bit. Make sure that holds. Same thing here. Get a lot of glue. Lift it up. Hold it. You can definitely see if you haven't folded evenly. You'll see it. But I'm not going to take the time to fix that. And again, because I did that, I could put a little heart there or something, but I'm, again, not going to worry about it. So after you've embellished everything with making your tags, putting in, you know, a tag can go like that, square tags, anything that you want to add to this, adding in your pictures, writing on it, journaling on it, tucking little things inside. Once you have all of that finished, then as you fold it up, gather the sides, and you have your box. So here's the completed box. Really kind of fun. And then when you pop, it all explodes and it comes out. And then you have the more of these things that you put in, the more interactive things that you have, the more fun it is to go through the pages of things. Being able to do things. I'm definitely going to put an envelope or a fold on there, like a simple pocket, just like this, following the lines. So play around with your papers to see what looks good. So again, this is what the boxes look like. If you were able to get a box from the Dollar Tree, that one looks like that. And again, I just measured the size, covered that little piece. I liked the red ribbon across the top, left that. This is the 12 by 12 sheet of paper. And then this one is the 10.5 by 10.5. And then if you wanted to still do 9 by 9. But that's your easiest measurements of the paper for that one. Or again, if you're lucky enough to get 2 boxes, use the smaller box as the middle and then do another smaller one through there. This is the one that I showed as my example. And again, you pop your lid off, things open up. So this can show you how that looks. You have your opening in the center, so that's fun to open up, have a little gift or a message in there. Little tags that I've added for those sides. Also some more tags here. I can pull that out, write a note on that. Same thing on each side. I did an even bigger one where you can, you know, open this up, have a poem, have a note, sentiment, whatever you'd like to do for that one. And then for these, I still just left this side plain, but, you know, I'm going to add pictures to that. For the sides, I use, this is the part that we cut out from the center. I use those, and then you'll be able to put a little something right there. So that's how those turned out. And then this is the box that I made previously. I cut out, this was part of their scrapbook paper that came in the book, so I used that as the center, but used the seagulls and coordinating paper there. That pops open. And then this is a good example of, this is a pattern that goes one way. So a lot of my stripes or polka dots didn't matter which way they went, but because this is an actual pattern, you want them pretty much face up. So I consider this part to be the front of my box, and I based everything on that. So you can see all the sailboats here are going up and down. I've got pockets, the fish, some more pockets. I've got one coming down this way because that's the front, one going up here. This one you can just turn your box around so it doesn't have to be even. You can see that. Now, when you do close this all up, obviously your front of your paper is going to be upside down because I wanted it to be right side up here. And I folded it over like I had shown you. So that is upside down, but I'm not worrying about that too much. I think that looks fine. And then there were the examples of the pockets for the top because I didn't do it all the way. So those are all the different size boxes that you can do and some of the ideas. If you go online, there are so many examples of how to make these explosion boxes and so many examples for making all the different little kinds of pockets. I just showed you a couple today, but there's lots of different pockets you can make. So this really does make a fun 3D type of junk journal or gift box. So there's many different ways that you can make this. This is just one example. So make it your own. I hope you had fun. This is Kimberly Kennelly, Crafting with Kimberly. See you next time.